I have a theory that is makes it hard to understand the question, separated from what could be called the rest of the society, so to speak. So the problem is that people often see technology as one layer, isolated from, I don't know, economics, politics, morals, life. But that's not the way it is for humans, at least. I mean, for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, the drivers have connected what the society is made of and what the technology is doing in it. So it's very hard to isolate the drivers. They can come from many different sources. So if we want to work in this interview, we have to make sure that you accept the possibility that basically society and technology are the two sides of the same coin. Greed, ambition, poverty, hunger, powers, of course, ingenuity, I mean the thousands of things that could explain as well politics or art or economics. I mean, it's very difficult to isolate one little bit, which would be the introduction of non-human resources inside a situation. Social division of labor is just one of the many things which could explain the organization of what could be called the techno-social or socio-technical assemblage. If you take, of course there is a division of labor here, there is a division of labor between you and the cameraman and scientist and myself, but I'm not sure this is very strong drivers. There is division of labor, there has been for forever. The only thing which is typical of a technical as such is that when it's introduced into an organization, it stays. And it maintains the state of the organization for a slight while. So this is why it's, I don't know, this chair, for example, is sitting me, it's holding me, and it's slightly longer lasting than me. But actually, this could last for a very long time. So that's what technique does to an organization. If not organization, there's a shifting, moving set of relation which have no durability. But if you add a little bit and pieces in it, which are coming from what is called the non-human, usually material, but it can be also legal, it lasts a little longer. It can be answered, this question, only by empirical cases. I don't think, I've read many historians of technique and economists of technology, and you could make very interesting inquiries about, for example, the long-term range of innovation, the cycles of innovation on a long-term period, a few decades, etc. But you will always have a very rough idea to answer your question. Because most of the time, precisely because technology is so much the same thing as social and political and legal relation, it depends on so many factors that the sort of aggregated answer to this case study never worked very well. For example, many people have tried to find laws of innovation and subsidize these laws of innovation, create, I don't know, engineering parks and that sort of thing. And Germany has been very successful at that. But the problem is that this is very rough. I mean, of course, it's better to have, if you say, a more open society, lots of engineers, lots of money to do the scaling up, lots of research, educated engineers, you can say this is good. I mean, it's a good drive. But if you wanted now to follow that on one specific innovation, you would be very surprised, because suddenly you would realize things like, I don't know, the Dieselgate suddenly arriving there for reasons which are linked to the legal demand made to automakers by institutions, state institutions, and then engineers finding a clever solution, but the wrong sort of cleverness, so to speak. And you will have to go case by cases. And again, when you're going case by cases, you will visit a large part of Europe, of Germany, or France. So this is why, in order to get into technique, you need to change the way you appraise it. And this is a very important aspect of it. The way to appraise the technique has itself to be adjusted to what I say, which is when you study a technique and it's the difficulty of its innovation and the reason why it works or doesn't work, you have to bring to the study of it special type of senses and special type of principles, which are not the one you would use easily for normal economical theory, for example. The reason is that precisely when a technique arrives, it just shifts the whole sort of set of attitudes and presuppositions that people have. It's made for that. It's disruptive. When you arrive with a technique, poof, all the calculation of all the people who were there with a certain idea of what is the state of society is modified. Oh, that's a much easier question, because they differ radically by the fact that innovation since, let's say, Newcomen engine, I'd say all the way to the 1980s, that is 19th and 20th century, were driven with this idea that Ulrich Beck, as the German sociologist, has nicely called, indifference to after effect. So it was much easier to innovate in the 19th and 20th century, because basically you were finding new solutions to disrupt the state of the art at one given moment. You knew you had to take care of some of the after effect, but the big after effect, the long-term after effect, was completely out of your ecosystem, precisely. And now what's happening is that the after effects are all coming back to haunt, so to speak, every single piece of technology, including this machine, which I'm sure this lighting system there, we will be told soon that it's bad for the eyes, that it has the wrong wavelength, or that it's made by material which is actually destroying large parts of Africa, etc., etc. Well, the first thing is that progress is gone as a concept, because now progress precisely was a 19th and 20th century idea of technical access to resources through invention disrupting older pattern of use of the earth, and whose after effect could be ignored. But all of that has disappeared. So now every time you talk about progress, you have to remember, well, for whom, what has been, what consequences, after effect has to be reintroduced into the definition of a technique. For example, if you take now electric car, which is supposed to be the great solution, but if you reintroduce the question of battery and the material necessary for battery, suddenly you have an hesitation, let's say, on is it progressive or is it regressive? So the very notion of progressive or regressive is now completely blurred. Is it abandoning, for a Frenchman, abandoning nuclear energy, for example, could be, by the German, could be called regressive. I mean, the great country of engineering and technology, Germany, is abandoning this technique, which still might be progress. Again, it means that the way we evaluate techniques, the way we judge their development and innovation is completely wrong, because precisely we cannot sort them out by their profitability or efficacy without taking the after effects into account, which modifies every calculation of interest. Well, I think it's fair to say that there is a line which we could be called hypermodernism, which would be the connections that is robotic, artificial intelligence, DNA manipulation, a whole sort of, let's say, iconic technological hype associated for the public. I think, to take one example, with Musk, let's say, which is continuing the dream of technological innovation as it was made in the modernist period, with one small differences, but essential, is that it's not for the many. It's not for the masses. It's not for the whole world. It's just for a very small segment of very wealthy sort of Californian tycoons, which is for me embodied in the word of Musk when he sent his rocket into space with his, which was a publicity for his car, if you remember, and when he said this is fun and silly. Whatever you say about technology of the 20th century, it was not fun and silly. It was engaged into a prospect of modernizing, which was serious, sometimes dangerous, but serious. And that's one line, the one you see in the press, basically. The mass of stuff on artificial intelligence and robotics, and are we going to be overpassed by robots and all these silly things. And the other direction is, of course, completely different and exactly the opposite, which is now every single technology has to be redistributed and rethought in the line of, let's say, to take one element of a decarbon, I don't say in English, decarbonate, we say in French, economy. And again, the case of German shift from nuclear to redistributed energy pattern is a good example of how fast this could be going. So there is one line which is the inevitability of hypermodernism, which is the hype that people try to sell us, and that fascinates journalists usually. And then there's another much more distributed, completely different definition of what is innovation and not innovation. So you have people who consider that, permaculture is a progress. So it's progressive compared to other form of modernist agriculture, which themselves are considered as archaic now. So the whole systems of technology is going to change. And anyway, it will change very fast when it will be pushed by the extraordinary quick expansion of the ecological catastrophe. So if engineers, schools, companies, citizens are not able to absorb that shift, the consequence will be harsh, let's say.